David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. So my sister-in-law and her husband have been here the last couple of nights, and last night we stayed up late with them talking about my collapsed lung. We actually stayed up 2 nights in a row talking about my fucking collapsed lung. And it's starting to come out now how much trouble I was actually in. So they rate pneumothorax, the collapsed lung, on like a scale. There's like minor, medium, severe, and tension. And tension is basically you're about to go into cardiac arrest or you are in cardiac arrest. Your blood pressure drops and you're just fucked. So when I got to the hospital, they did all the tests on me and they said I was in tension. So the doctor at the hospital I was at was on the phone to my sister-in-law, and the first thing she got was, his pneumothorax is in tension. And then apparently my sister-in-law almost had a fucking nervous breakdown because that means you're fucked. And so my sister-in-law's like, what's his BP? What's his fucking pulse? What's all this and that? And she said it's all normal. So I wasn't actually in tension, but I was severe. Like I was on the severe end of severe. So at any point when I was just rolling around with that one lung, fucking doing podcasts, smoking darts, having a good old laugh, I could have gone into tension. I could have had a heart attack at any point that week. But who gives a fuck about that? What has been fucking me up this week is, and I completely forgot about it until my wife mentioned it a couple of days ago, is I was meant to fly to Chennai. So my wife and her parents and my kids and that all drove to Chennai, and the plan was I was to fly to Chennai, meet them there. Because I said to them, I can't fucking sit in the car for 7 hours. My back's sore. I can barely breathe. I'll just fucking fly. And that was the plan. That was fucking set in stone. It was all ready to go because we were going to see my sister-in-law's graduation or some shit. And then the day before I was meant to fly out, my sister-in-law called my wife and said, because of this COVID shit, they're not going to let that many people in the hospital. So David won't be allowed to come in. So there's no real point of him coming to Chennai. And I was like, fucking sweet, because I got the show to write. I didn't want to go to Chennai regardless. I was trying to find ways to weasel out of it, but I was like, well, I'm always trying to weasel out of shit, so I might just fucking go on this one. But at the last minute, they fucking put restrictions on people allowed in, and I couldn't go. So I asked my sister-in-law last night, I was like, so what would have happened if I'd caught that flight with a collapsed lung? And she's like, you'd be dead. And I'm like, so what would have happened? How would I have died? And she's like, well, as soon as the plane took off, the air pressure outside will be reducing, which will make the air that's stuck in your chest expand. And the higher you got, the less air pressure outside, the more the air in your chest would expand. And the pressure in your chest would become so intense, and there's nowhere for this pressurized air to go. It would crush your heart. You would go into cardiac arrest mid-air, and unless there was a doctor who had like a syringe to stab into your chest to relieve the air pressure, you would have died in the air. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like fun. That does not sound like fun at all. Boyle just sitting there minding his own business, fucking scrolling on Instagram. The plane takes off. My eyes are closed. I'm praying like I always do. I'm fucking midway through my prayers. Please protect the fucking plane. And then my chest begins exploding. The fucking air pressure in my chest breaks all my ribs, crushes my heart. I go into cardiac arrest. I'm still trying to pray. Just get me through this, God. Get me through it. And I was like, do you reckon there's any way I would have survived it? It's a 45-minute flight. Could I have just like pushed through? Could I have fucking boiled it through? And she was like, there was so much air in your chest. The collapsed lung was so severe that I highly doubt you would have lasted like 15 minutes. So the thought of that has been fucking me up all day. I cannot stop playing that scenario out in my head. I'm there on the plane. I'm looking at annoying Indians on the fucking plane doing annoying shit. I'm not wearing my mask. I'm like, fuck you. fuck you and your rules. I'm pretending to read, but I'm really praying. Just my normal flight attitude. And as soon as the fucking wheels leave the ground, I'm like, hold on a second. I'm having a little bit of, help, land the plane. Jesus Christ. And then no one knows what the fuck's going on. There's no doctor on board because I'm on the cheapest fucking flight there is. No one even knows I've got a fucking collapsed lung, let alone me. And even if there was a fucking doctor on board, unless they had something to stab into my chest to let out the air, there's nothing the doctor could do. That's what they would have had to do. They would have had to stab a fucking syringe into my chest to relieve the pressure. That's what my sister-in-law was about to send her friend over to come and do before I went to the hospital. One of her friends is a fucking lung doctor, and she was about to send him over to stab me in the chest with a fucking syringe. I don't know if I would have allowed that. Fucking Uzair rocking up with a syringe and fucking stabbing me. But that would have been a fucked up death. And then I start thinking about all the fucking heart attack talk I was talking about a month ago or 6 weeks ago, whenever the fuck it was, saying I'm going to die of a fucking heart attack or some shit like that. I'm not tempting fate with any of this shit anymore. I knew I was getting too smart for my own good with those podcasts, and I only missed out on dying from cardiac arrest last week by some fucking dumb luck, by a series of absolute accidents. So I'm just going to be humble now. That's what I'm going to be. I'm just going to be a humble man. What the fuck was I thinking tempting fate with my health? I also laughed a little bit too hard at John Dawes' heart attack as well. I take it all back. The worst thing would have been if I caught that flight with my collapsed lung. I died of cardiac arrest midair. They get me down to the ground. They take me to hospital. They do the autopsy. And I've got COVID as well. And I'm put down as a fucking COVID death. And then people listen back and they can laugh at me about the heart attack, the COVID, me trashing doctors, they can just laugh at me for everything on the podcast. So from now on, I'm just humble. I'm just a humble guy. So that's it for tonight. Stay humble. That could be my new sign off. Stay humble, people. It's a good message. Stay humble. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I'm about to take my kid to fucking Spider-Man IMAX 3D. If this little cunt doesn't fucking appreciate this, he's going to get thrown off the top tier of the fucking IMAX. So anyway, if you're enjoying the podcast, give it a share around with your friends, family, degenerates, fucking everyone. And I'll see you the fuck later.